Ever wish you could like hop into a time machine and see how things really went down?
Mm-mm.
Well, today we're doing just that.
Okay.
But for the internet,
Right.
we're going on a deep dive
Hmm.
into the world of historical IP addresses to
Interesting.
figure out
Yeah.
who owned what way back when.
Hmm.
Think digital archaeology,
Uh-huh.
but with way more cat memes.
It's more complicated than it sounds.
Okay.
Imagine IP addresses like a website's phone number.
Right.
Crucial for understanding online activity.
Yeah.
But these numbers
Uh-huh.
aren't permanent.
Gotcha.
They're traded like hot potatoes, especially with the rise of cloud computing and the fact that we're basically running out of the original type of IP address,
Okay.
the IPv4.
Okay, so it's musical chairs with IP addresses.
Yeah.
And not enough seats for everyone.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So how does knowing who currently owns an IP address help us understand,
Right.
say, a cyber attack from years ago? Seems like it could lead to some serious finger pointing
Uh-huh.
at the wrong folks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Using today's IP data for past events is like trying to solve a crime using a witness
Okay.
who has a terrible memory.
Yeah.
It's just not reliable.
Hmm.
Think about researching
Yeah.
how universities adopted cloud services over time.
Okay.
If you don't know who actually controlled those IP addresses back then, your conclusions could be totally off.
All right, let's break this down for folks who haven't spent their days spelunking
Okay.
through internet infrastructure.
Right.
What exactly is an IP address?
Yeah.
And why should we care about them?
Hmm.
Other than for potentially solving digital whodunits.
An IP address
Yeah.
is a unique string of numbers
Okay.
that identifies any device connected to the internet,
Gotcha.
like a computer or a smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
When you visit a website, your device uses its IP address to send data packets to the right server. It's how the internet knows where to deliver your cat videos, basically.
And to find out who's behind a particular IP address,
Right.
we use these things called Whois services, right?
Yeah,
They're like digital phone books for the internet.
precisely.
Yeah.
Enter an IP address into a Whois service,
Uh-huh.
and it spits out information
Okay.
about who's registered to it.
Yeah.
Usually the organization that controls that little slice of the internet.
But the catch is
Right.
regular Whois services only give us a snapshot
Right.
of right now. They don't
Okay.
tell us who owned that IP address
Yeah.
5, 10, or 20 years ago.
Right.
And with this whole IPv4 shortage causing a digital land grab,
Yeah.
tracking historical ownership seems impossible.
You're hitting the nail on the head.
So it's impossible.
Not quite.
Okay.
That's where the game changer comes in.
Mm.
Our main source for this deep dive
Yeah.
is a research paper introducing a new tool
Okay.
called Back-to-the-Future Whois,
Ooh.
or BTTF Whois for short.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
basically a time machine for IP addresses.
Okay, BTTF Whois, love the name. But how does it actually work?
Right.
Is it some kind of digital DeLorean fueled by old floppy disks and dial-up modems?
Not quite.
Okay.
BTTF Whois taps into this incredible database
Yeah.
called Routeviews, maintained by an organization called CAIDA.
Okay.
Think of Routeviews as a massive library of internet routing information
Okay.
collected from all over the world, going back years.
Wow.
BTTF Whois sifts through all that data to reconstruct the history of IP address ownership.
So instead of just looking at who owns an IP address now,
Yeah,
BTTF Whois can rewind the clock and show us who owned it then.
exactly.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
But I imagine there are some serious challenges in dealing with that much data, right?
you're right.
The paper mentions something about researchers having to deal with messy data
Yeah,
and special cases and routing announcements.
you're absolutely right.
Okay.
It's not a simple process.
Hmm.
BTTF, who has to untangle
Yeah.
all sorts of complexities.
Right?
Imagine trying to piece together a giant jigsaw puzzle
Okay.
where some of the pieces are missing, others are duplicates,
Mm-hmm.
and some are from a completely different puzzle.
That sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah,
So how do the researchers even begin to make sense of all this chaos?
right.
What kind of digital detective work are they doing?
They use this clever data structure called a prefix trie,
Okay.
which you can think of
Yeah.
like a super efficient filing system
Okay.
for IP addresses.
Gotcha.
It lists BTTF, who zoom in on the exact routing information for a specific IP address
Right.
at any given time
Right.
without having to search through the entire database.
Oh, wow.
It's like having a librarian
Uh-huh.
who knows exactly where every book is,
Okay.
even in the messiest, most disorganized library imaginable.
Sounds like these researchers are basically digital librarians
Mm-hmm.
with a serious knack for detective work.
Right.
But a good detective needs a good case to crack.
Yeah.
How did the researchers put BTTF Whois to the test? Did they try to solve any real-world internet mysteries?
They did.
Really?
One of the case studies they focused on
Mm-hmm.
was research into how universities are moving their IT infrastructure
Okay.
to cloud providers.
Mm.
It's a hot topic these days,
Yeah.
with everyone wanting to know which cloud services are winning the race in academia.
So they wanted to see which universities were using Amazon Web Services,
Right.
Google Cloud,
Yep,
Microsoft, Azure, and so on.
exactly.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But why not just use a regular Whois service for that? Seems like it would be a lot simpler than building a time machine for IP addresses.
That's what the researchers initially did.
Oh, okay.
They started with regular Whois data,
Mm-hmm.
just like anyone else would.
Okay.
But then they compared those results
Yeah.
to what BTTF Whois came up with, and guess what?
What?
The differences were shocking.
Wait, so using regular Whois gave them the wrong information?
Yes.
I'm sensing a plot twist here.
Uh-huh.
Tell me more.
The paper highlights a particularly juicy example
Okay.
involving MIT,
Uh-huh.
the Massachusetts Institute of Technology.
Oh, right.
Back in 2017,
Yeah.
they decided to sell a massive chunk of their IP addresses
Okay.
to Amazon,
Hmm.
a whole 8 block,
Uh-huh.
which is a huge amount of digital real estate.
Wow, talk about a digital yard sale.
Right.
But how did that throw off the research?
Well, if you only looked at regular Whois data,
Yeah.
it would seem like those IP addresses belonged to Amazon
Uh-huh.
from 2017 onward.
Right.
But BTTF Whois
Mm.
revealed
Yeah.
that those addresses were actually still under MIT's control
What?
for a couple of years
Yeah.
after the announcement.
Yeah.
The actual transfer didn't happen until 2019.
So regular Whois made it look like MIT had jumped on the Amazon cloud bandwagon way earlier than they actually did.
Exactly.
That's not just a minor detail.
Mm,
That's a major misinterpretation of the data.
Yeah.
It's like writing a history book
Uh-huh.
based on rumors and hearsay.
You're absolutely right.
So yes.
This means that anyone studying cloud adoption trends
Mm-hmm.
using traditional Whois data
Yeah.
could be overestimating the adoption rate by years.
Oh, wow.
Imagine thinking that universities were flocking to a certain cloud provider
Right.
when in reality they were taking their sweet time.
This is incredible.
Right.
It's like those IP addresses had secret lives,
Mm.
and only BTTF Whois could uncover the truth.
Right.
I'm starting to understand why this tool is such a game changer, but I'm curious, how widespread was this issue?
Yeah.
Was it just a few IP addresses here and there,
Right.
or was it affecting the bigger picture?
It was definitely affecting the overall picture.
Yeah.
Especially when it came to universities
Mhm.
in the United Kingdom and the United States.
Mhm.
BTTF Who showed that the adoption of Amazon Web Services in both countries
Yeah.
was initially much lower
Okay.
than what regular Who's data suggested.
So it wasn't just a fluke.
Right.
It was a trend.
Exactly.
Without BTTF, whose researchers would have been totally misled about the pace and scale of cloud adoption in those countries,
Yeah.
they would have been writing a completely different story
Right.
about the history of the internet. And it would have been based on inaccurate information.
Precisely.
Wow.
And this highlights the importance of accurate historical data in any field,
Uh-huh.
but especially when we're talking about something as complex and ever-changing as the internet.
Right.
BTTF Who is like a truth serum
Okay.
for internet history,
Gotcha.
helping us to see past the illusions
Yeah.
and understand what really happened.
Okay, I'm officially blown away. This BTTF Who is like having a superpower. It's making me think about all the other mysteries we could solve with this kind of technology.
Right.
Cybersecurity investigations, tracking the spread of misinformation, understanding the evolution of online communities.
Right.
The possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
It's like we've opened a portal to a whole new dimension of internet history.
You're catching on.
All right, so we've established that BTTF Who's
Yeah.
is basically the coolest thing since sliced bread. But every superhero has their kryptonite, right?
Right.
What are some of the limitations of this tool?
Yeah.
Does it have any weaknesses? The paper did mention a few.
Well, it's important to remember that BTTF Whois relies heavily on the data from Routeviews and CAIDA. Those are amazing resources, but they aren't perfect.
Okay.
Think of it like trying to piece together a history book from scattered pages.
Yeah.
You might get the main story,
Okay.
but some details will always be missing.
So BTTF Whois isn't an all-seeing eye.
Right.
There are still some gaps in the historical record.
Yeah.
That makes sense. What else should we keep in mind?
Another challenge is that sometimes organizations announce a range of IP addresses called prefixes that they don't actually own or control. For example, an internet service provider might announce prefixes for their customers. That could lead to BTTF, who's mistakenly attributing ownership.
So it's like assuming someone owns a house just because they have the keys.
Exactly.
Sometimes they're just house sitting.
Right.
Okay, what other limitations should we be aware of?
One more thing is the AS2ORG mapping data, which links those big internet networks called autonomous systems to the organizations running them. This data isn't always as accurate or up to date as it could be.
Because organizations are always changing.
Right.
Merging, getting bought out. It's like trying to keep track of who's who at a giant tech conference.
Exactly. And those inaccuracies can trickle down and affect the results from BTTF Whois.
So there's room for improvement. But it sounds like the researchers are already on the case.
Absolutely.
Okay.
They're already exploring ways to make BTTF Whois even more powerful, like incorporating data from internet routing registries and something called RPKI, the Resource Public Key Infrastructure. Those extra sources of information could help fill in some of the gaps we talked about.
It's incredible to think we can basically travel back in time and piece together the history of the internet, one IP address at a time. Who knew IP addresses could be so fascinating?
It's a testament to the power of data analysis and these researchers' ingenuity as tools like BTTF who become even more sophisticated. Who knows what other insights we'll uncover from the internet's past.
It's been a wild ride.
It has.
Through the world of historical IP address attribution. I feel like I've leveled up my internet knowledge for sure.
Glad to hear it.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
My pleasure.
And for everyone listening, here's a final thought.
Okay.
What internet mysteries would you want to solve with this kind of technology?
Makes you wonder what other secrets are hidden in the internet's history, waiting to be discovered.